Choosing a PAM platform is less about picking the biggest name and more about choosing the right fit. In this module, we'll compare CyberArk, BeyondTrust, Delinea, and Microsoft PIM against consistent criteria, so the decision connects directly to risk, operations, compliance, and business needs. You've already covered the key building blocks: IAM foundations, core PAM controls, Microsoft PIM operations, and vendor platform basics. Now we bring those pieces together. The goal is to compare CyberArk, BeyondTrust, Delinea, and Microsoft PIM using practical selection criteria, before moving into Module 5 and deeper privilege controls. Strong PAM vendor selection starts before the product demo. Begin with the outcome you need: vaulting, least privilege, session monitoring, cloud role governance, remote access, or secrets management. Then separate must-haves from nice-to-haves, because attractive features can distract from the real control objective. From there, map requirements to the assets you actually run, including directories, servers, databases, network devices, cloud platforms, DevOps tools, and SaaS apps. Finally, be realistic about operations. The best solution is one your team can integrate, administer, support, and sustain. These platforms all support privileged access, but they do not solve the problem in the same way. CyberArk is typically the broad enterprise PAM platform with deep vaulting, session control, secrets management, and governance. BeyondTrust often stands out when endpoint privilege, remote access, and least privilege workflows are central. Delinea is strong for flexible vaulting and hybrid environments, especially from mid-market into enterprise. Microsoft PIM is different. It is native to Entra ID and Azure role governance, so it more often complements PAM than replaces it. When the focus is vaulting, the differences become clearer. CyberArk is the most mature enterprise option, with deep checkout controls, rotation policy, and lifecycle governance, though it usually requires more operational effort. Delinea Secret Server and BeyondTrust Password Safe cover core vaulting, discovery, rotation, approvals, and session launch needs, often with more practical deployment paths. Microsoft PIM serves a different purpose. It governs just-in-time privileged role activation in Entra ID and Azure, but it does not replace a vault for shared passwords, service accounts, SSH keys, or local credential rotation. Session monitoring turns privileged access into a controlled, observable workflow. Instead of connecting directly, admins, support engineers, and vendors go through a secure access gateway or session broker, which then opens the connection to servers, databases, network devices, or cloud workloads. That broker can isolate the session, enforce approvals, monitor commands, record activity, and send audit events to security tools. CyberArk is strong for brokered privileged sessions and recording. BeyondTrust fits remote support and vendor access well. Delinea supports monitored sessions through integration. Microsoft PIM provides activation logs, but not full session recording everywhere. Endpoint privilege management changes the default operating model. Users do not keep permanent local administrator rights. Instead, the endpoint runs with standard user permissions, and a policy engine grants elevation only when an approved application, script, or admin action requires it. Everything else can be blocked, logged, and reviewed. BeyondTrust is particularly strong here, with application control and least privilege across workstations and servers. CyberArk adds policy-based elevation, threat protection, and credential theft reduction. Delinea supports elevation and delegation tied to vaulting policies. Microsoft PIM handles cloud roles, not full local endpoint elevation. Discovery is where effective PAM begins. Before vaulting or rotating anything, you need to know what exists across directories, servers, databases, network devices, cloud resources, and applications. The lifecycle is continuous. Discover accounts and access paths, classify risk, assign an owner, onboard into control, rotate credentials, monitor use, review access, and retire what is no longer needed. CyberArk, BeyondTrust, and Delinea support this discovery to vault workflow. Microsoft PIM applies the same lifecycle idea to eligible and active roles in Entra ID and Azure. Microsoft PIM fits best when privilege is tied to Microsoft Cloud roles. Instead of making admins permanently privileged, PIM makes access eligible, then requires time-bound activation, MFA, approval, justification, notifications, and review. that provides strong governance for Entra roles, Azure resource roles, and privileged access groups. But PIM is not a full replacement for enterprise PAM. CyberArk, BeyondTrust, and Delinea still matter for vaulting credentials, recording sessions, managing secrets, and protecting servers, databases, and network devices. In hybrid environments, use PIM for Microsoft role governance and broader PAM for everything else. Secrets management extends PAM beyond human administrators to machines and software. In DevOps environments, pipelines, applications, containers, service accounts, and cloud workloads should request credentials programmatically from a vault rather than storing them in code or configuration files. Strong options need APIs, SDKs, CI/CD plugins, short-lived or dynamic secrets, automated rotation, and audit trails. CyberArk is generally the most mature in this area. Delinea and BeyondTrust can support credential workflows as well. Microsoft PIM is different. For Azure workloads, think Key Vault, Managed Identities, and Workload Identity Federation. Analytics help move PAM from "we control privileged access" to "we can prove and improve privileged access." CyberArk, BeyondTrust, and Delinea provide behavior analytics, risk indicators, policy reports, and compliance evidence across vaults, sessions, and rotations. Microsoft PIM adds visibility for Entra and Azure, including alerts, audit logs, activation history, access reviews, and role assignments. The most useful dashboards focus on exceptions: unmanaged privileged accounts, stale access, failed rotations, high-risk sessions, excessive approvals, and dormant admins. When these signals feed SIEM, SOAR, ITSM, GRC, and identity governance, teams respond faster and auditors get cleaner evidence. Deployment model is really about where responsibility lives. SaaS reduces infrastructure work, accelerates rollout, and scales quickly. But you still need to validate connectivity, identity integration, and data residency. On-premises gives more direct control over infrastructure and isolation, but your team owns patching, upgrades, capacity, backup, and disaster recovery. Hybrid is often the practical answer when cloud identity, Active Directory, legacy systems, and segmented networks all coexist. The best choice follows compliance needs, network design, latency tolerance, and operational maturity. Because a PAM platform protects the keys to the kingdom, resilience is not optional. As usage grows, tests scale across accounts, sessions, endpoints, API traffic, password rotations, secrets retrieval, and global locations. Then examine availability across every dependency: vaults, session brokers, connectors, proxies, databases, and identity integrations. If one component fails, administrators still need safe access, especially during incidents. Operational maturity makes the architecture real through runbooks, monitoring, backups, upgrades, change control, break glass access, and trained owners. The goal is a platform that stays secure, recoverable, and usable under pressure. Vendor selection should start with the problem, not the logo. If the priority is mature enterprise vaulting across complex systems, CyberArk often leads the evaluation. If endpoint privilege, vendor access, and remote support dominate, BeyondTrust becomes compelling. Delinea fits teams that need practical hybrid vaulting, secret management, and easier adoption. Microsoft PIM is strongest when privileged risk lives mainly in Entra, Azure, and Microsoft 365. The best choice reflects ecosystem fit, control maturity, integration needs, and where privileged access creates the most risk. The big takeaway is that PAM vendor selection is a risk-fit decision, not a feature count contest. Compare capability, architecture, integration, operations, compliance, and use cases together. CyberArk, BeyondTrust, Delinea, and Microsoft PIM solve different parts of the problem, and mature programs often combine them. Next, we move into implementation across operating systems, cloud, Kubernetes, DevOps, and secrets.